They always want to find X, as if there are no other letters in the alphabet. The day I was born, because when I was born, my father walked into the maternity ward, took a look at me, and asked my mother one question: is this a joke? I'm a believer in imitation is an invitation to elevation. Because a person like Mercy reaching the 3-year milestone and you have over 5,000 people coming to your show, that enough can reach your head and you end up taking drugs. But you see that they are really focused and they love their country. They love the country. They are willing to push and support any up-and-coming comedian. There are different forms of comedy. There's sketch comedy, where 2 or 3 people come together and act at a situation. And normally on TikTok, you see most people, that's sketch comedy. Then we have the stand-up comedy, where you come on stage.
Which is actually your specialty.
My specialty. Yes. You come on stage, make people laugh. If they don't laugh, you die alone. I love Rwanda. I love the language. It's very, what should I say? It's therapeutic. Even when a Rwandan says, I hate you, he says it in a way that makes you still feel good. Like it doesn't feel like you even want to say, oh. Like it's a lovely language. When you look at the weather, it's very friendly. It's the people are extremely friendly, hospitable. And yes, it's the heartbeat of Africa.
Hello, my viewer, and welcome to the special edition of The Perspective. Today we discuss entertainment, comedy in particular. I have a very special guest from Uganda. His name is Kenneth Chimuli, aka Pablo. He's a legendary comedian. He's an actor. He's a motivational speaker. He's actually a journalist by profession. Today we discuss his journey. He will tell us more about what comedy means to him and what the future holds for this entertainment industry. Pablo, thanks for making time to speak to The Perspective.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for hosting me.
Yeah, it's not your first time
here. Yes. It's not my first time. But it's every time I come, there's something new that really catches my eye. And it's very refreshing to come to Rwanda. Just as they say, that when God was done creating the world, he came and rested in Rwanda. So every time I come, it's like, you're coming home to rest.
Actually, they say that he stays anywhere else during the day.
Yes.
And at night, he sleeps in Rwanda.
Absolutely.
You agree with that?
Honestly, yes. When you look at the weather, it's very friendly. It's the people are extremely friendly, hospitable. And yes, it's the heartbeat of Africa.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I want my viewer to know who Pablo is.
Oh, that's a very good question. Well, like you mentioned, my real name is Kenneth Chimuli, also known as Pablo. And Pablo is a journalist by profession, a theater practitioner by occupation, majoring in comedy. I am a Rotarian by vocation and a child of God by his grace, and pretty much a Ugandan by citizenship.
Wow.
Yes.
Pablo, what inspired you into the world of comedy?
Well, honestly speaking, it wasn't intentional how I joined comedy. Like when I was in high school and primary school, I loved drama, I loved music, I loved dance. But I also loved journalism, because we had these news anchors who were on TV, and every time they spoke, I felt attached or aligned to what they were doing. And so I always wanted to be a journalist. And by God's grace, I was able to go to university and do mass media, journalism, and creative writing. So fast forward, when I was done, I went to work with one of the publications in Uganda. And they decided to put me in the entertainment desk. So I used to go to different theaters, different happening places to cover stories. And then I remember vividly in 2003, the beginning of 2003, there were artists at the National Theatre who had come together and formed an assembled cast, and they wanted to start comedy. So I go and tell my editor that there are guys who are starting something called comedy, and she said, "Okay, go follow the story. You need to get a hook, and you have to justify why you're publishing the story." So I go for their creative sessions, looking for the hook, and in the process of looking for the hook, I end up being hooked up. Reason being, I got engaged into their creative process and I fell in love with it. And I also started contributing stories. And the guy said, "Man, you look to be interesting as well. So why don't you just join us?" So that's how I joined them. And that was the beginning of my theatrical life. And so 2 years later, and at the end of 2003, we had a radio drama. They started the radio drama, and they needed somebody who could speak most of the Western Ugandan languages, which I was privileged to do. And so it meant I didn't have time to rehearse, but I had created an understandable following. And so Philip Luswata, who was then the leader of the group, by then it was called Theatre Factory, says, "Okay, what you can do, just be the MC of the show. When one skit ends, you come and just cover the space, the void that is there, as they prepare to enter the next skit." And in the process, I would come and just do a news analysis of what happened in the papers. I look at the lighter side of serious issues. And before I knew it, people had picked interest in that segment. And that became stand-up. I didn't know I was doing stand-up comedy. And so people saying, "There's this guy, he's a stand-up comedian." And then I was a stand-up comedian. I said, "No, I'm just an MC." I said, "But you're doing stand-up comedy." So I went to research and find out what stand-up comedy was. I'm like, wow. And in 2009, we had MultiChoice comes to Uganda, and they decide to have a stand-up Uganda competition, looking for the funniest person in Uganda. And by God's grace, I was lucky to win the competition, walked away with $10,000 and bragging rights as the king of comedy.
Wow.
That's all I got at the time. So that's how I entered comedy. And once I was now aware and had been given the mantle of stand-up comedy, I decided to start my own show and called it Pablo Live. Reason being that I wanted to create a space for other comedians to perform. And that's how we started the show. It's still on air, and I can say it's been a long journey.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. That's so inspiring.
Yes.
That's so inspiring. So Pablo, you've been in Rwanda before.
Yes.
This is not your first time.
Yeah, sure.
What keeps you coming to Rwanda?
That's a very good question. The first time I came to Rwanda was in 2004. We were doing an intergenocidal study with a university called Cal Arts University, and we moved around the entire Rwanda, different places, different universities. And I was fascinated by the culture. And also, it's not a secret that in Uganda, we have Rwandans, I should say. And so I could compare and contrast and see that they had some things that were unique. And I then came back again in 2008, sorry, and under the same study. Then I came back just to visit in 2010. Then in 2018, we had a show at the Serena. It was Seka Fest. Yes,
yeah, Seka Fest,
yes, and that was the last time I was here in a comedy event. But at least I came back because I was working with a lady called Caro Karemera. We're doing something, it was called Paya, performances for young audiences. But it was low key. Yes, and here we are once again.
That was in BC. That was
yes,
BC,
before COVID. Yes, that was then. But I love Rwanda. I love the language. It's very. What should I say? It's therapeutic. Even when a Rwandan says "I hate you," he says it in a way that makes you still feel good.
No way.
Like it doesn't feel like you even want to say "oh." Like it's a lovely language. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from your past visits,
Mm.
how do you see comedy in Rwanda?
Oh, actually, I was telling some of the up and coming comedians that they need to buy shades because their future is bright in Rwanda when it comes to comedy. A reason being that, first of all, it is a new trend, not new as new, but uh, there are still opportunities, especially if they can use their mother tongue. You don't necessarily have to speak English to do comedy. So I was telling them you need to understand your language, look at because comedy is pretty much like a reflection of your society. Look at what is happening. There's no room for fiction because there's organic content in Rwanda. And I like the fact that right now when we're talking to Merci, uh, there are some corporate companies which are speaking interest in supporting this, the industry, and as such, they can now benchmark on that and find more opportunities in Rwanda. The future is extremely bright. The few comedians we have talked to are quite hilarious. Actually, at some point I said maybe I should just come back to Rwanda and just stay.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're
Yes,
welcome.
just yes, I'm welcome. Yeah, I'm learning a few words there. So
Okay.
yeah.
So, Pablo, comedy is a powerful tool for
Yes.
storytelling and even activism sometimes. Do you feel a responsibility to use your humor to address some social challenges that you actually face? Or which social challenges do you think can be addressed through comedy?
That's a very good question. Comedy is a funny way of being serious. We address serious issues in a lighter way. And so, as a comedian, I do believe it is my responsibility to look out at how best can I promote values and things that are virtuous, and not use comedy to annoy any person. So it's our responsibility to talk. We talk normally in my craft. I address reproductive health issues, especially because those ones concern everybody, whether you like it or not. You're talking about health issues. You're talking about things that are in public interest. Eh? You want to alter people's values and attitudes towards a certain line of thinking, and that's what and that's where comedy comes in. You want to address real issues, but in a way that it will not be treasonous, it will not be seditious, it will not jeopardize the development of the nation, and you want it to impact the person who's listening to the content. Yes.
Have you ever faced, okay, I'm just curious. Have you ever faced backlash or challenges because of the way you joke?
Yeah, obviously. First of all, there are some sensitive jokes. You'll come and crack a political joke, for example, and it will be funny, but you never know which way it goes because it could be at the edge. Yeah, and it could get you in trouble. It could easily get you into trouble because the authorities that be may not look at it from the funny part. They look at it from the political part, and that could easily get you into trouble.
In such a case, how do you handle this?
I think the best way is to make them understand. You just have to explain yourself and say, look here, this is what I meant. But again, as a comedian, it's your responsibility also to know that there's a limit. Yes, where to go. I once cracked a joke. I didn't feel it was heinous, but the supporters of the system that be came and advised me and said, you know what, Pablo, there are some jokes. This country is full of many jokes. Yeah. So look at those ones, but leave these ones aside. And so you get the message in there. And the law, you have to follow the constitution. So you have to be a law-abiding citizen. So if it lies in the lines of the law, then you're better off leaving them.
Okay, so you're a coward.
Well, cowards live longer. Eh, yes.
Okay. All right. So East African comedy has actually grown to another level. It's always evolving.
Mm.
How, what do you see, or how do you envision this kind of entertainment in the next decade, for example?
Well, basing on the template of countries that have had comedy since 1900, and they are still still sustainable right now, we do believe that there are ways that we can amplify what we do as comedian. First of all, there are different forms of comedy. There's sketch comedy, where two or three people come together and act out a situation. And normally on TikTok, you see most people, that's sketch comedy. Then we have the stand-up comedy, where you come on stage.
Which is actually your specialty.
My specialty.
Yes.
You come on stage, make people laugh. If they don't laugh, you die alone. Yeah. You test the depth of the ocean with both legs. You swim. Then you go and do a post-mortem and find out, why did I die? You know? And then how can I better it? Because a comedian, you're only as good as your last performance. And then there's also what we call puppetry. There are people who use puppets for comedy. And then you'll also find what they call clowns. You know, those people who wear clothes, they put a big stomach. So that's also another form of comedy. So depending on which style you choose, there's mimicry. There are people who want to mimic. They want to mimic the president. They want to mimic ministers. Mimicry. They want to mimic maybe. So it depends on what you want to classify yourself as. So, and all of them have pros and cons. So whatever path you choose to take, one is to understand the structure of that kind of comedy. Where is its strength? You do like a SWOT analysis. You look at the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in that line. And then you also have to look at the target audience. Who's my audience? I might want to do a form of art, but my audience is limited. So how best can I interest other audiences to be part of my target audiences? So it depends on the passion of the artist, the comedian. How far do they want to go in this business? Because many will start, but few will cross over. Because like any other occupation, comedy also has occupational hazards. You know, if you go on stage and you're not funny 2-3 times, chances are you may not continue if you're not strong enough. And in terms of where do I see it going, I see comedy growing in leaps and bounds, because technology has come in, and that then gives comedians an opportunity to showcase their content. And so you'll talk to audiences that are not necessarily in the geographical space where you are. You can also talk to people elsewhere. I've seen comedians who are more famous than they are at home. You travel somewhere and they ask you about a comedian you've never even heard of in your home, but
they are famous
elsewhere. So the audiences are mega. And not only that, the dynamics involved, there's a lot to talk about lately. Because we have access to information from different parts of the world. So it's up to you to bake what you want out of that content. So I do believe that the future is extremely bright. We have seen African comedians become exports of their countries, to travel, to perform. I'll tell you, as I speak right now, most of the Ugandan comedians spend more time out of the country than in the country. And that is, they're basically now a cash crop, So it depends on how you choose your craft and how you bake your craft, and that will determine how far you can go.
You can go, yeah. So it's about how you package your content.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Do you want to be known as a villain? Do you want to be known as an antagonist, a protagonist? The choice is yours.
Okay. At least I'm lucky that you're not. You're not. I'll leave that. So now, The Gen Z comedy in Rwanda, the reason for which you are here,
Yes.
is mainly focused on young comedians. I am reliably informed that the project is actually aimed at empowering young comedians, inspiring them,
Yeah.
and bringing them up to the level that we all desire to have. What advice would you give, for example, to budding comedians who probably want to fit in your shoes, though they are heavier, to fit in?
Well, in 2018, when we were here with Alex Mohanji, we came with Ragadi. We by then were invited by Arthur Kutsi.
Yes.
By then, so we went and met a group of young and upcoming comedians, and we had a conversation on how you can create content, and we were excited with what was happening. Took photos. Fast forward to today, and do you know that the people who have invited us for the Gen Z were actually the products of that workshop? There was Mercy, there was Rusina, and they're the ones now championing the industry.
The comedy industry.
What does that mean? That means that the seed that we sowed 7 years ago is now bearing
Sprouting.
fruit. So if I'm to use that as a yardstick to look at what next thereafter, it shows in the next 7 years, even these other performers that are also in the lineup of comedy growth will also have gone a mileage like what is happening here. I met a comedian from Rwanda called Have Chimenyi, who's does comedy in French, and he's doing well for the industry in the French speaking space. And for me, when I look at the artists here, they are hungry. They are hungry for comedy success, and that is very good, because when you have such a drive, you have such a passion, and they are willing to learn, they are willing to listen, and which is very rare. And some of them haven't allowed the celebrity status to reach their head, because a person like Mercy reaching the 3-year milestone, and you have over 5,000 people coming to your show, that enough can reach your head and you end up taking drugs. But you see that they are really focused, and they love their country. They love the country. They are willing to push and support any up and coming comedian. So I can say without any fear of doubt that the comedy industry in Rwanda, believe you me, is going to surpass other forms of entertainment. Reason being that unlike other forms of entertainment, this one is more memorable, because people can always remember jokes and laugh. The only disadvantage with it is that they have to keep on their feet, because unlike music, the more you listen to a song, the more it grows on you and the more you like it. But in comedy, a joke twice is never as funny. So you have to keep
Fresh ideas.
fresh as it needs to be for you to succeed.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know that. A joke, you said a joke made twice?
A joke twice is never as funny. If I've had a joke before, I might not laugh as I laughed when I first heard it. The more you tell it, the more it gets diluted.
Okay.
Unlike music, the more you listen to a song, the more you like it. I started listening. I was in the last election, I was listening to Ojera by Melody and Buiza. But the more I'd listen to it, the more I would just like the song. But if it was a joke, I wouldn't listen to it twice or thrice. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I like especially the chorus. Ruda Sumbwa, Kagame Poro, Mwari Yachu, Tori Kanje, something like that. It's a very nice song.
Wow.
Hey.
Oh. So, Pablo, you are a legend in Ugandan comedy. Actually, if I could remember well, if my memory serves me properly, you are among the first people to think about this, to actually to even bring up anything like that. If you had an opportunity to mentor a young comedian who was not part of the other people you have met, who has not had the opportunity to probably meet you or even hear from you, what lessons would you want them to learn?
Oh, that's a good question. First of all, I can confidently say that I was arguably the first stand-up comedian. I started in 2003. That's many years ago. And like I said, even I didn't know that it was stand-up comedy. I thought I was just emceeing. But then in 2007, I was privileged to go to Sundance. It's a theater lab in Salt Lake City, Utah, in the US. And so I got to understand the structure of comedy. And so when I came back, I started sharing with some of the people uh, the content. And that's when I believe that in sharing, there's also learning. Sharing is caring, but it's also learning. And so if I was to meet, if I was to share anything with a person who wants to become a comedian, the first thing I'll tell you is thrive on passion. Comedy is about passion. The success curve of comedy is not straight up. A reason being, it's a form of art that hasn't been fully adopted in third world countries. It's still at its infancy. So if you're a person who wants instant success, you're better off starting a shop than venturing into comedy. So you have to look at your passion. How can I create something unique? And the more you do it, the more it reels in uh, numbers in terms of viewers, and then opportunities of making money will come.
Come through.
Yeah, the second thing, I would encourage them to pay attention to the people who have walked that path before. Because they say if you want to know the journey ahead, ask those who have taken the route before or those who are coming back, because they know what is ahead.
You go and come back.
Yeah, so you need a mentor, somebody who can hold your hand, or somebody you can ask that, how do you do this? How do I do that? As I speak, I also have mentors, you also need to watch what other comedians are doing. A kid who doesn't visit thinks the mom cooks best. So you need to go and see what other chefs are doing.
Explore,
see, and then you can borrow a few things from there and create your own niche. I'm a believer in imitation is an invitation to elevation, as long as you add value to it. If I come and see what Sam is doing, and then I'll see what Mercy is doing, and then I'll see what Ambassador is doing, I can say, if I get this and this and this, can't I make a cocktail of what they're doing, and I create my own style, which is allowed. That is art. Art evolves and revolves. So I would encourage them to get mentors, but most importantly, to be passionate. Once you lose passion, even if you get the money, you lose interest in the art.
Yeah. There's a time I had a similar conversation with a comedian, and I concluded the conversation without, and then after the conversation, he was so surprised. He asked me, he said it is the first time he had held an interview and they had never asked them to crack a joke. But I'm not going there yet. I'm not asking you to crack for me a joke yet, because I am very sure before we end this show, someone will be laughing. So a quick question. What's that one thing that people don't know about you and might surprise them?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Maybe they don't know that I don't know that, but maybe. Let me see. What don't they know? Because I think they know that I sleep till I wake up. Let me see.
That one is obvious.
They don't know that I'm the only vegetarian who eats meat. That I'm sure that's something they didn't know. Yes.
Oh my God. Okay. Yes. I think I should follow suit. Because I'm also a vegetarian. But I have a farm of goats at home, and chicken. Whenever I want, I can slaughter one, but I'm still a vegetarian.
Thankfully, you're not a humanitarian.
Interesting. So, Pablo, if you are not a comedian, what would you be?
I think
If you are
I'll still be a journalist. I like journalism, man. It has adrenaline, covering stories, going to the war zone, Yeah, I like, things that give adrenaline, like a car racer, Yes, I think that's what it would be. Though, when I was young, I wanted to become a cobbler. You know those guys who repair shoes? I found it fascinating how they would sew. Like, my mind is this guy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they owned all the shoes and sandals in the village.
All right. Okay. I'm sorry, my viewer from Pablo has made me laugh a lot.
No, that's a good problem. It's a good problem.
So, Pablo,
Yes.
a quick question. Apart from comedy, let's entertainment in general.
Yes.
How do you think entertainment actually shapes the world in which we live?
Yeah. Well, first of all, entertainment. The entertainment industry is the fourth arm of the law. If you had to look at it, if you had to look at music, poetry, spoken word, comedy, is that it's a vehicle of messages. There's things that a comedian will say and won't get arrested, but if a politician said the same thing, he would be arrested. So it's a vehicle of the fourth arm of the law that supports the three arms of the law. And entertainment is also, it has a significant role in shaping the society, especially when it comes to reproductive health issues and also raising a society and children. I'll give you an example. There's a film that was recently produced by a lady called Jennifer, and it's called Head. Now, this is a movie that ideally talks about...
It's called The Head.
The Head, yeah. That talks about the head of the family, the expectations of a father. But sometimes the father gets derailed along the way. And because of the different demands of nature, they kind of are swayed away. But then the movie focuses on the significant things that bring him back to his roles. But what stands out for me, because I'm a big advocate of children and the boy child, I do a show called Pablo and Kids that focuses on kids that do things that are way beyond their head, kids who do their age, And what attracted me to that film is that it points out the roles of a boy child. And normally there's always a girl child, girl child advocacy. But this one shows how best can we model the boy child to become the man that every mother-in-law would love to have as a son-in-law. Who is... So for me, that's what the industry can do. It models, it will help to promote family as a unit.
Wow. So, Pablo, should I ask you to crack for me a good joke, or I've already laughed enough?
Well, that's a question you never want to ask a comedian, It's like asking a doctor, so do you want to give me an injection? Yeah, because when you say crack for me a joke, I don't know what you've been going through today. I might crack a joke and it's about your mother, yet you're about your girlfriend or wife, and yet you just had like a marital misunderstanding. Yeah, you've turned marital love into martial arts. Yeah, something like that. But anyhow, having mentioned that, I always tell people that the best joke is about yourself. Yeah, because naturally people like laughing at other people. So I'll just maybe tell you about myself and how I knew I'd start comedy. I knew I would become a comedian when I was born. The day I was born. Because when I was born, my father walked into the maternity ward, took a look at me, and asked my mother one question. Is this a joke? And here I am, a living joke. It's a true story because I follow 5 girls. So he was excited. And and I performed very many miracles. She believed I was a miracle worker. I remember the first miracle I performed, I was 9 years old, and our neighbor wanted to commit suicide. He had prepared a rope to hang himself. And when he was about to hang himself, he saw me there. He said, "What do you want to go away?" I said, "No problem, you go ahead. I have no problem with you. I'm only waiting for your shoes." And the man changed his mind. All my life, I'd never known that there are people who love their shoes more than their own life.
And then he didn't hang.
He didn't hang himself.
Oh my God.
Yes. He said, "Why do you want to take my shoes?"
Pablo, it's been a pleasure having you on the perspective.
The pleasure is all mine.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yes. Always a pleasure to be on this show. And to the viewer, thank you so much for watching this show. And to the Rwandan,
the Rwandan fan.
Yes.
I want you to talk to the Rwandan fan.
I talk to the Rwandan fan. Hariko numuvandimwe nishimiye kongera kugaruka iwacu mu Rwanda rwa Gasabo. Imana ukumugisha.
Thank you so much. My viewer, we are always, the perspective is diverse. We give you issues, we give you different content. This time around, it was entertainment and comedy. I hope you have laughed enough. If you haven't, then it should be for next time. Until then, bye.